Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it seems like all the things are up today. Well, not all the things. Oil's not up. So they think, or are we all of the sudden optimistic about a deal again? I don't know. It keeps going back and forth so quickly. Well, let's see the chart. Here's the 10-year treasury. So they're going back to the other side of this range. It's not a huge change, but hey, we take what we can get, right? S&P 500 not doing well yesterday. And I think part of that was rates. Part of that seems to be like this AI trade rearing its head again. Like a lot of software has done well recently and they're taking a major haircut. So that's Spoos. Here's oil kind of declining back to where it was the beginning of the week. Gold and silver popping up pretty hard on it too. Copper making a run on it, but you know, not too much from only clawing back a little bit of what they lost earlier in the week. And here's the Japanese yen. It was a big spike overnight. I'm not sure what that was. But they're in the dollar. That's a pretty big move down in the dollar. What about Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin up? Bitcoin is seeing increased volatility. So when I start to see volatility like that, that is the sort of thing that starts to happen when we have a bottom. It'll probably, you know, do a little bit more, but you know, that, well, I don't know. I hope that it's not the end of it. But that's when I see volatility like that, catches my attention for sure. All right. Just take a look at our individual charts here. Okay, we got volatility setting correctly. It's a little bit more increased volatility today. We're 5.14. And what about spreads? There might be some movement here in the spreads. We are in a bit of a hole, though. Let's see here. Today is Wednesday. So, why did we... Wait, is today Wednesday? No, today is Thursday. Durr. U.S. initial jobless claims 225K versus the expected 215, so higher than expected. Although the continued jobless claims was slightly lower than expected, 1.77 versus 1.78. We got percent speaking at 10 o'clock. That might be important. Trump announcement on coal, huh? It's a Wednesday. It's the beginning of the month. I guess tomorrow we got non-farms, huh? What do we got for non-farms tomorrow? No, let's change our filter to only be the dollar. Yep, non-farm. They're looking for a reading of 85K versus 115K. Ooh. Oop, we need to come over here to the right screen. That's a pretty weak number, but I mean that has been around where they've been at, right? Let's see here. I have to. Yeah, it is lower than the last 2 months too. Significantly lower than the last 2 months. A negative print would be like within the range of possibilities. Okay. So what can we do with that? I don't think we can do much with that. I mean, I think that kind of suggests that it's going to be another relatively quiet day. How are you guys doing? You hearing me okay? Is everything good? Morning, Kevin, Ray, Vital. There we go. Vital says, good morning. Okay, so I think that means everything works. Hezbollah chief rejects U.S.-mediated Israel truce. Trump to maintain ceasefire with Iran unless American troops killed. So wait, the United States and Israel have to maintain a one-sided truce and basically just let Hezbollah shoot drones at Israeli soldiers in order to negotiate a larger peace settlement wherein all hostilities are stopped so that they can negotiate Iran giving up its nuclear material again. Is this a joke? Trump claims they will maintain ceasefire with Iran unless American troops killed in the middle of my final negotiations end the war while blasting Republicans who voted the night prior to limit war powers. Yeah. Hezbollah chief rejects outcome of Lebanon-Israel talks, insisting that a truce must encompass the whole country. Oh, they want to kick Israel completely out of the country. Because there's a line that they have right now. I knew that Hezbollah. Yeah, well, and the thing is that you got to remember that Hezbollah is Iran. It's basically Iranian proxies that have embedded themselves into Lebanon. The whole thing is just crazy. My personal opinion is that the only way you're going to solve this problem is if you just end the barbarians. You just end it. But nobody has the political will to do that. So we are going to continue to run around in this circle. And we'll be back here again in 5 years or whatever. Yeah, Wall Street Journal reports the White House intends to maintain a ceasefire with Iran unless American troops are killed. Oil also drops after Trump states on Truth Social. Trump lashes out after House War Powers vote passes Wednesday evening, attacking especially 4 Republicans who voted in favor. Trump downplayed Iran's attacks on U.S. bases in Kuwait and Bahrain, saying they were slightly provoked, so they were reciprocating. The whole thing with Congress is getting kind of wild too, because they're voting to restrict the president's powers based on the War Powers Act, which the president, well, all presidents have said is unconstitutional anyways. And then it's crazy for Congress to want to, I mean, I don't think there's ever been a situation where they've voted positively for that. That would like really, really hurt American credibility. How does the president, negotiate anything if Congress says you can't do anything? And then if the United States is attacked, they can't do retaliatory strikes, because the administration says that the war with Iran is over. So they're voting on to restrict war powers on a war that already ended. And like the whole thing is just and if that went to court, like how would that all play out? It's such a mess. Wow. I think that they have to be doing it because again, nobody in Congress actually thinks that it will actually pass the Senate. So yeah. Meanwhile, U.S.-Iran permanent peace deal by June 30th, 2026. Polymarket says no, only 25% chance. So I guess the play that we have, and I don't think that it would be worth putting a position on, but like to be kind of aware of it so that maybe if it happens, we could go on it, is that some other piece, because right now the news overnight was positive, I think that we should be looking for a negative headline. That's the way that it's been oscillating back and forth. Man, okay, so one of the things that's going on politically is this NOAC thing seems to be blowing up. I saw stuff about it earlier in the week, and it was basically was like, well, why won't they release the footage? They're trying to not release the footage. People were just starting to get really upset and kind of, I think, forced the footage to come out. Now that the footage is out, it's picking up legs, and I'm seeing discussion about it all over in the United States. That one's an interesting development, I think, because the left's reaction has been to just dismiss it. And in doing so, they are basically proving the people that are upset correct. That they don't really care about you and whether you're safe. Man, that one's kind of wild too. I wonder, I mean, the UK was already trending that the conservatives were just really doing well. Just accelerate that even further. Well, let me browse around and see if there's any other interesting stories I should. Carmelo Anthony trial to proceed with no black jurors? Oh my. How did that happen? Again, private Dems asked Plattner if there would be more allegations to come. Started riots in the UK. Have you seen? I saw. I didn't look at it too closely, but I saw it. I don't know. It was you know, like the. Are we having a move here? Hold on. To me, the footage itself wasn't all that shocking. It was, I mean, you can describe what happened is just as shocking. The guy was stabbed, and the police, instead of, you know, looking when he said that he was stabbed and that he can't breathe multiple times, instead of doing something and looking and trying to find the stab and give him medical attention, they arrested him. Because the other guy was saying, "Oh, he attacked me." It's pretty crazy, man. Do you think medically that if he had been given medical attention by the police, triage until medics appeared and all of that he would have survived? Because I kind of suspect that he was kind of dead anyways. Not that it matters. Not that it matters. These are just the sorts of things that my mind does. I seem to be more interested in. Actually, I shouldn't talk about the mechanics of it because it kind of makes me feel nauseous. It kind of makes me feel nauseous thinking about it. Makes me think of watching the Charlie Kirk shooting. When I finally saw the footage of the Charlie Kirk shooting, that made me pass out. Yeah, they confuse the police with barbarian tactics. Well, like the thing that really kind of irks me about it is like, doesn't that happen in lots of disputes? I don't know. Probably the number of times that like you stabs, because he stabbed him multiple times. That's the other thing that's wild, is they stabbed him multiple times. And then you're talking to the police afterwards. That probably never happens. That probably never happens. Okay. But I'm sure that police are presented. I'm sure that police are presented with situations all the time where they have two people that are saying exactly the opposite thing. And I think that if somebody says, I've been stabbed and I can't breathe, that you take that seriously, you know? I guess the conclusion, though, is because I think that some people are going to say, well, maybe we need to train the police to deal with these situations better and yada, yada, yada. Maybe. Or maybe we just shouldn't import people that are going to run around and stab us. Seems like the only way to have avoided this situation to me. Don't you think? I know. As I'm saying it, I'm kind of like, oh, for the people that are maybe on the edge or aren't familiar with the situation yet or are liberal, I don't know if what I'm saying here is going to be very convincing. They're just going to be like, why are you like trying to, you know, talk about the mechanics of what happened and was he really, you know, could he have really survived and this and that? And I think my point is kind of the reason why I'm getting into that is because I'm kind of like, it seems like that once somebody comes up and decides that they're going to stab you multiple times, that is just like, what can you really actually do? The only thing that you can really do is prevent that person from being there in the first place. They shouldn't be on the street. Is the police just really biased too? But like, here's the problem with that, Vital. So the police are biased. We elect Nigel Farage. He's in charge of the government. Do you think that Nigel Farage can really change the opinion and behavior of liberal biased police in London? I don't think they really can. It's kind of a rough thing, right? So let me take this a different way. Way back in the day, well, maybe before George Floyd. We could talk about before George Floyd, but maybe let's just talk about George Floyd. Okay, the George Floyd thing happened, and lots of people were upset that the police officer was sitting on top of George Floyd when George Floyd was saying that he can't breathe. And he died in police custody. There's evidence to suggest that he died from drug overdose and not anything to do with what the police were doing. But people were upset, right? So then you got like Black Lives Matters marching all over the place. I remember in Salt Lake, big protests and stuff. They had to disperse. People like flipped over a police car. That's about the worst that it gets in Salt Lake City, right? And so people marched. They're upset about this thing. Okay. And then what? And then what? Nothing happened. It was like this whole movement. It got a lot of support. There's all of these politicians that were like, yeah, we're totally with you. They're all kneeling in solidarity and all this sort of stuff, right? And then what changed? What did they do? Right? What is like, in order to have an actual effect, you have to be able to come in and say, what is the actual policy that you want enacted to prevent this thing from, to make things better, right? And you kind of run into a situation where the world is the way that it is right now, and what happened, and there was probably not a whole lot that you could have done to stop it. So the movement fizzles out because you're not able to solidify on a single policy proposition, right? At least that's what happened with Black Lives Matters. In my opinion, Black Lives Matters was a failed movement because it didn't really result in any long-term change. There was some people involved in the protests that became rich off of it, but they didn't really make the lives of Black people better or anything like that. And I'm afraid it's the same thing happening with NOAC. It's like, maybe you train the police better, but is that really what people are protesting for? No. What people are protesting for is stricter immigration restrictions. I think that they're right. I don't think that you should be importing mass numbers of Muslim immigrants from third world countries. You're importing too much. It's going to negatively affect your culture. It's going to destroy your country. You're poisoning your culture. So I think that's what people really want. They're all too afraid to say it, maybe. But that's what needs to happen. I'm still stuck on the barbarian thing from yesterday. Like, the more that I think about it, the more like I can see my mind like turning it into an ADHD obsession sort of a thing. I just think that it's a really effective language to explain what's going on and to convince people. Yeah, you have barbarians invading our countries. And everybody's just kind of like, I'll give them a chance. And then they stab you. I sure hope that in the United States we figure this out and find reasonable ways to deal with that challenge before it's too late, like it probably is in the UK. I don't think you can say, like, I wouldn't say that all Muslims are barbarians. In fact, I think there are a lot of Americans that are actually barbarians at heart. The more I think about barbarians, the more I look at some... Okay, so like another thing that happened is that for some reason, social media has been pushing Kingdom of God or sorry, Kingdom of Heaven clips at me. Which I don't know why. It is kind of like, it gets me thinking about the Crusades. My understanding is that the message of that movie really is that while on the surface it seems like a religious battle, it was actually all about political reasons. And I think that's what they were really trying to say in that movie. But I haven't seen it. I didn't see the theatrical release. And now I understand that they like totally changed the movie because it was a 3-hour movie and that was too long. And it dramatically changed what the movie was. And the director's cut is like a masterpiece. Like the biggest epic movie of the last 20 years or something like that. So now I'm like, oh, I gotta watch that movie. So it makes me think about Crusade stuff too. But it also makes me think about Mormon stuff, because that's basically the dichotomy that's set up in Mormon scripture. So for the uninitiated, Mormon scripture, the Book of Mormon, which claims to be a record of people living in the United States, claims that there was a group of people that immigrated from Jerusalem around the time of the fall of Jerusalem, and they immigrated to the United States, and then the record is what happened to that people in the United States. And of that family, there was one person named Nephi that was a very righteous man. And then there were his two older brothers, Laman and Lemuel, who, like they claimed to believe, and, they kind of went along with things, but they were always complaining, and they didn't want to come over, they didn't want to cross the sea and all of these sorts of things. And so when they came over to the United States, they just kind of split up. And so Laman and Lemuel complained that, Nephi basically wronged us and took what was like rightfully ours. So there's this whole thing of like, there's the Nephites, and the Nephites do pretty well. And then there's the Lamanites, and the Lamanites don't do so well and are constantly attacking the Nephites, trying to say, we should have all the stuff that you should have, right? So Lamanites are essentially barbarians, and the whole mentality is not I should build things if I follow God and am righteous, I will be successful in my endeavors. I should be diligent. Instead, it is I'm just going to do what I want and then complain that the other person is successful and try and take it from them. So it's the same story in Mormon stuff. And Mormons also believe that, this life is kind of, well, in some ways it's a test. I think Christians kind of think in some ways this life is a test, right? But Mormons also believe that in some way it is practice. This is like how you learn to do the things that are going to be important for the next life, or for whatever reason. That like heaven is a state, and that we have to build it. Mormons, the Utah like seal and mascot and everything is the honeybee, because they are industrious. So Mormons believe very strongly in working hard, building up the kingdom, etc., etc., etc. So they have that builder mentality. Like the whole thing in the religion is, you're a builder, there will be barbarians that will come and try and take it from you. Do you recommend only investing in the S&P 500 for someone who are not very good with this stuff? Well, so here's the thing. I unlike most people that are like trading influencers, am not recommending to people that they should day trade. The reality is that almost 95% of people that try to day trade lose money from it, especially trying to day trade futures. Okay. The idea that you're going to become rich and successful from futures is really quite a crazy proposition. So, excuse me, should you just invest all of the money in the S&P 500? Well, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Okay. The buy and hold in the S&P 500 gives you the best risk reward. Okay. Or rather, like the amount of money that you make relative to the amount of risk that you're taking is the best. Okay. It's so diversified. You're not taking a whole lot of risk in the S&P 500. You might have down years, but overall, you're going to make 5 to 7% per year very consistently, right? And so it's a really good return for very little risk, right? That's not necessarily what everybody wants, right? I think for your retirement, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, you should contribute as much as you can into your 401k and your IRA. And you know, that makes sense for your retirement. You shouldn't mess around with your retirement. For me personally, when it gets beyond that money that you have set aside for retirement and then you have money to invest in other things, I want to take more risk than that. So there's two things that I do. One thing that I do is instead of investing in the S&P 500, I invest in Berkshire Hathaway, because that's a company that's really well diversified and has an excellent track record of strong returns that beat the S&P 500. And even though Warren Buffett is leaving, he has left behind a great legacy, a company that works very, very well without him, and that I think will continue to provide strong returns. So I put a lot of money into Berkshire Hathaway, and it's done well for me too. Another thing that you can do is you can invest in high beta stocks. So you have a diversified portfolio. You're going to pick companies that are all within different sectors. Like maybe you pick 5 different companies, but they have high beta, which is to say that they move a lot relative to the S&P 500. And so if you invest in beta, well, beta hasn't worked super great recently, but especially since the 2008 crisis, that high beta has worked really well. That has basically been where all of the money is. And if you just invested in beta, you made twice as much as the S&P 500. So there's like another simple strategy that you can do. This is still buy and hold type stuff that will make you more money than that, right? Still not enough for you, huh? Still not enough. You want to take on more risk. I think the next step up would be a momentum strategy, which is where you watch a universe of assets, and when those assets are in certain states, you buy them, and you don't win all of the time with them. But since you are getting in at like the beginning of a trend, if you do get a trend and you hold it, you can get really, really big wins. And so that's something that also far outperforms the S&P 500. Although with that one, you have pretty massive drawdowns. You'll tend to have 50% or more drawdowns. And there's a very large number of momentum funds that go under because the investors can't handle that pain, even though the strategy works out in the end, right? Although an issue with the momentum strategy, it's questionable if you can do that with a small portfolio. Usually for the math to work out and everything, you need to have like a hedge fund. And then for the math to work out to run a hedge fund, you basically need like 10 million in assets under management. So that one maybe doesn't make sense for a lot of people. You don't have a whole lot of capital. And I think that the next thing is you got to start a side business. start whatever it is that you can do, that you know how to do, and meet your hobbies and things like that, and start businesses with them. And that's not necessarily the big business. That just kind of starts to teach you the basics of running a business. And then maybe someday you come across an idea. You can do a venture capital startup, something that could potentially be worth, $10 million, or something that could be worth $10 billion. That's kind of the valuation that they're looking for. Starting your own business. And starting your own business is a way better gig than day trading. It's a way better gig. You'll make way more, number one. Like most of the people that are rich, that's what they're doing. They own their own business of some sort. And like there's not many downsides. So you might not be successful with it, but you can do it without really risking a lot of money. That's a better game too. So, but I guess the most important thing that I want you to pick out of all of that is that even if you want to take risks, you should always be invested in the S&P 500 in some form. Even now, because I have some concerns about the breadth in the S&P 500, right? I'm not so sure that the breadth and the risk reward in the S&P 500 is really that great. The way that things are, the historical pattern is that equities are going to underperform for the near future. That's what the stats say. This doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen, right? So I could see where it would make sense that you would, in your 401k, want to have a slightly different allocation. You might want to have a slightly different allocation, sure. But even then, I think you still want to have some in the S&P 500, right? And then if you have some left over, then you can think about what kind of risks you want to take with it. Unfortunately, most of the people that want to come in and day trade are really not well equipped to actually do it. Day trading can be a really good enhancer of wealth, but it's not a very good builder of wealth. You have to have a pretty decent wad to start with. And if you're not the kind of person that can risk thousands of dollars, it might not be for you. You got to be either the kind of person that is willing to risk thousands of dollars or is just obsessed with the subject. I might wait for individual stock futures and buy them all. The individual stock futures is going to be an interesting thing, how many people actually end up using it. And the pattern day trade rule changes tomorrow too. Moroccan, hey, how are you doing? It's been a while. Let's trade. How do you think Zian is going to do today? I think that Zian is basically going to continue trading back and forth around 23 pretty much all day and not do much of anything of note. Today is just a really bad day for it because we got non-farms today, so probably not a lot of people are looking to make big moves. Day trading can't be a hobby or a side hustle. It's either a full-time job or nothing. I don't know if I agree with that, Vital. Because the issue is from what I've seen, making it a full-time job doesn't increase your chances of being successful with it. It can be a hobby or a side hustle, but I think that it is way more involving of a hobby or a side hustle as most other side hustles, yeah. Like you're going to be spending 20 to 40 hours a week on it in addition to your regular job. The research side of it in particular. Like people at work, when they talk about these things, I think they're constantly like, how do you, where do you get all of this stuff? I sit and read research reports all day. I'll do a little bit of my work. It's time for a break. Read an article. Go back to it. All day. This is part of where, maybe it hurts me. I've been wondering if maybe my cortisol levels are been a little bit too high this week. So we did a pretty major release. I think it went well, but it was stressful. So I definitely feel it. But I think one of the things that really gets me going is when people that really don't know anything about the subject question your expertise in it, Like, all I do is sit and do computers and read about finance all day. And you're a school teacher. I think I know more about the subject than you. I'm really excited, though, to see the day trading, pattern day trade rule changes the day trading world. Because there's some big advantages to day trading stocks. There is. This problem that we have today, where the asset's just not moving, you don't have that, because you can pick which one you want. You can pick any asset, so you just always pick something that's moving. It's always has a flow that you can predict. So, that reminds me, by the way, we should be testing our trading GUI. So let me bring that up. I think I fixed my my problems. I fixed one problem, and then I found another problem along the way. It's an order flow. Yeah, well, the thing is that the opportunities that we have are not an everyday thing. So a lot of this is finding things to talk about and to do so that we can still be here for those opportunities, and not make any stupid decisions in the meantime. Let's see here. So we got that. Oh, no, wait. Let's put it right here. Put that one right there. And then where's my other ES chart? Right here. Okay. We're still trading. We still trade. So I wouldn't say that I trade based on the news. I don't think that that's an accurate. I think that the news is a part of it, right? But I would say that like passive flows, like what equity index funds are doing and things like that, matter more. Like those are where the real opportunities lie. A lot of news moves so quickly, especially this geopolitical news. Really hard to trade the geopolitical news, man. It really is. So like a lot of the kind of news that I would like to play with is like the period after a major economic release. Because I've gotten a pretty good knack for not only knowing if the number is going to be above or below the expectation. Not that I would say I'm good enough at it to want to place bets and just try and play that. But then also knowing like how it's going to react when you get that, and finding those niche situations where you're kind of going to get pushback from it, right? So those are much better opportunities. I think that the kind of news that we are the worst positioned to be able to take advantage of are like geopolitical developments. I am not, at least, privy to any kind of knowledge or information that gives me a really good edge on predicting what they're going to do next in the geopolitical world. I'm sure that there are people that are out there. Maybe if I had had a career in the CIA or something, then maybe I would try and trade those sorts of things, you know, but that's not what I did. So this period, this first half of the year, has been very much dominated by that, right? And that's made it difficult trading. It's in fact, I would say that overall retail day trading has gotten significantly less popular in the last 6 months because of that. Because people just don't want to deal with the Iran war anymore. You know what I mean? Then you would look for what the hedge funds. Yeah, well, it's not just like it's hedge funds, pensions funds. There's different types of funds out there, and there's flows that come from them, and you can predict them, right? But we talk about the news a lot because news is the one thing that the majority of retail day traders neglect, right? Most retail day traders are trying to trade purely on the technicals, on the chart itself. And you're missing so much when you do that. There's so much context and information that you can factor in that can help you. I'm not saying like you trade just that and you're going to make money, but I have a hard time seeing how you're going to be successful day trading without keeping an eye on that stuff, without like having a news squawk and listening and paying attention to it, right? Like knowing that tomorrow is a non-farms payroll is really, really important. There's lots of retail day traders out there that don't know that stuff. I pretty much every week, every month, when there's non-farms, I guarantee you tomorrow on the day trading subreddit, there will be somebody that'll come along and post, hey, what was this big move? And because they didn't know that it was non-farms. And I guarantee you there's going to be people that are going to come in and take trades thinking that some sort of momentum move is going to take off. And the reality is that it just goes nowhere because tomorrow's non-farms. You know? Like today, well, the S&P 500 is pretty close to where it started at the extended session, right? But like if we were to get to 75, 70, right now it seems like we're tilted positive. So if we get to 79, 70, I wouldn't be taking momentum trades unless I had heard a headline that was really, really positive. But if we don't get a headline, then the chances are that we are going to underperform on volatility. So if we got to 79, 70, I would take a short. It will never be a quiet time to day trade. It's either global virus epidemic or tariffs or war or aliens. Well, so let me tell you something vital. I think the thing that scarred me the most in day trading was when I first started trading in 2017-ish. Well, I started in late 2016, and then we started this stream in like April of 2017, okay? And for the first bit, we did really, really well, right? And then the summer came along, and I was not really experienced enough. I didn't really know about how things changed during the summer, right? So you had a decrease in volatility because of the summer. But then that was also the period of like maximum quantitative easing kinds of stuff. So like it really, really compressed volatility. to really, really compress volatility. And I went from feeling very, very confident about my trading to just completely questioning everything. And the reality was that it had nothing to do with what I was doing. A lot of probably the results that I was getting was random, but what was killing me was my strategies didn't deal with the low volatility very well. And for day trading, I really think there's only so much you can do about the low volatility. So I really struggled. I really struggled to understand when we were in a low volatility period and what to do, and to just kind of sit on your hands and do nothing. And I continue to be scared that that period will come back. Because you look here at the treasuries, well, we have pretty low volatility today in the treasuries. And so if it's this bad already, if we go into another period like that, it's going to be slow. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. So I'm not trying to scare you, but that's something I think everybody should be aware of and on the lookout for again, is that we may enter into a new period of extremely low volatility that is really, really hard for day trading futures. I suppose the way that you trade that one is you swing trade stocks, because swing trading stocks worked great during that period. It's like low volatility, but stocks just continue to float up just a little bit every day. Trading Euro stocks 50 today. U.S. market open and price didn't change. Bliss for mental health. Yeah, sorry, I don't get the European data. I'm really working hard on trying to expand my data horizons. I had some hope that I was going to get the DX feed, and then they stopped responding back to me again. I don't know if like maybe my email provider doesn't get through their spam list or something. So the other day I tried forwarding it to my Gmail and responding from my Gmail, and I think I still didn't get anything. Yeah. But, well, wait, they probably come in and do all that stuff in the morning, so maybe by the end of the day we get a response. But, because I'm willing to spend the $100 or whatever it is for DX feed to get that for stocks. Right, so then we'd have the stock data. Well, I think that at some point I need to get the Euro data too. And it's not because I'm going to, to show it to you guys here and all that, but more to make sure that the platform works with it correctly. Right? I think it's, I'd have to go and look again, Vital. It's not a ton. I think it's like another $20 or something like that. But if I'm going to spend $100 on the stock data, it's kind of getting tight. And I don't know if it's the changes in content or the platform or the spending less time actually streaming or increased competition, but we don't have as much money to work with as we did like 2 years ago. So I got to be careful about picking on too many expenses. probably should come in and make a couple of videos about basic NinjaTrader stuff. But so far, well, the chart seems to be going pretty okay. Except for that there's this one bar right here. Oh no, it's there. It was just hidden by my zoom. Okay. So far they seem to be matching pretty closely. So I had one issue where what was happening was Rhythmic, it will give you like the bar data, right? But what often happens is the first trade in the next bar will be received before you get the bar closing price and all of that. So what was happening was my platform was basing the close off of that last trade or whatever, which is wrong. So then you have to figure out, okay, how do you like correctly aggregate them after the fact, sort of a thing, right? Which I avoided doing and just said, no, the bar that they give you, that's authoritative and that's the price that you should have, right? Another issue that I had was that when you start out, like when you open the platform, you're going to be like halfway through a bar or something like that, right? And it wasn't combining that information together correctly. So we fixed that. There's a couple of other small things. But now I think we have something where we have a pretty accurate chart. And by the way, you'll notice, because it is basing it on like the orders coming through and everything, you can see that mine moves a lot more than NinjaTrader's, doesn't it? NinjaTrader, they aggregate it on an interval, and mine doesn't. So that might be good and that might be bad. That, it moving so much might kind of make it difficult for you to keep track of it. I don't know. But kind of interesting to watch. So far, things are looking pretty positive for the S&P 500, though. We'll see if they keep that up. I need to check my news squawk because I haven't heard anything from my news squawk. And well, it's still connected. When I come on Twitter, in the last minute, I've heard series of strikes reported across northern Israel as cross-border hostilities escalate, security alerts active in multiple areas. A Lebanon army says that Israeli forces withdrew from South Lebanon town. Air raid sirens sounded 3 times in Shalami, Western Galilee, moments after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu departed the area, according to Channel 12. It's kind of funny, like, Israel was expanding things in Lebanon, and that was kind of hampering negotiations. So the United States says, cut it out. But then it seems like Hezbollah is not helping. So is that situation destined to blow up the talks with Iran either way? I don't know, man. The thing that I can't figure out is how serious is Donald Trump about actually getting a deal? Because when I look at it, I'm like, there's no way that they're going to get a deal. But then he keeps doing things that makes it seem like maybe he's really trying to get a deal. But then I'm like, well, maybe he's not actually trying to get a deal. Maybe he's just trying to wait them out. I don't know the answer. It really kind of bothers me that I don't have a strong opinion on what's going on there. Continues to perplex. let's do another kind of browse around. Oh man, like the whole thing that when I was like, oh, I need to turn on my trading platform. That seems like that was so long ago, but it's only been like 20 minutes. So I'm getting anxious. You know, I went through a period where we were making a lot of big changes in the GUI, and it was really exciting. And now I've kind of come back into a period where it's kind of a little bit more maintenance stuff. So, you know, like I want to get the licensing working and all that kind of stuff, so that then I can go through a period of just working on making indicators for a long time. And I just would really like to get to the making the indicators part. Jamie Dimon to hold live interactive discussion with super rich clients as SpaceX IPO roadshow commences. What predictions do you guys have for the SpaceX IPO? Do you think that the SpaceX IPO is going to do well? This is something that I feel like I don't know very much about at all, so I can't really make an accurate prediction. But everything that I've been hearing has been that they are trying to price it way too high, which would suggest that it's not going to be a very good IPO, right? That it's going to like fall big time on the first day. UK police officers admit DEI training pressured them to ignore dying white teen Henry Nowak. People will hype it and then the banks will. Well, have you seen this whole thing with like Virgin Galactic going big and then crashing because people on Reddit were pump and dumping it? Ugh. That was wild because I was seeing stuff all over. It was like this big joke and everybody was in on it, but then like people were buying it. So want to read this. The number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits for the first time jumped to its highest in 3 months last week at 225K, but this remains well within the range of the last 5 years. The biggest increase in initial claims came from California, while Texas saw the biggest decline. Continuing jobless claims dipped to 1.777 million Americans, just above the 2-year lows. However, despite the seemingly solid claims data, outplacement firm Challenger, Gray, and Christmas reports that U.S. tech companies in May announced the most job cuts in nearly 2 years as they ramp up spending on artificial intelligence. The tech sector said last month it planned to eliminate 38,242 positions, the most since August 2024. Total private sector job announcements, meanwhile, were down 7% over the last 5 months versus the same period a year ago, reinforcing the picture of an ongoing low-hire, low-fire environment in most industries. In May, artificial intelligence led all reasons for job cuts for the 3rd month in a row. It is the highest monthly total ever recorded for the reasons since Challenger began tracking it in 2023, and it accounted for 40% of all cuts announced in May. The labor market is being reshaped by technology in real time, said Andy Challenger, the company's chief revenue officer. AI is now the leading reason companies give for cutting jobs. The figures jibe with recent high-profile AI-related workforce reduction plans announced by companies including Meta Platforms, Intuit, Cisco, Filings for unemployment insurance, however, haven't been meaningfully increased despite the slew of layoff announcements, which have mostly been targeted at white-collar positions. On the bright side, through May 2026, U.S. employers have announced 80,000 planned hires, narrowly topping the 79,000 announced to this point in 2025. However, hiring announcements remain historically low by pre-pandemic standards. Idea for a video trying a vegan diet for a month. Why would I do that? I really should be working on a new video, but my focus has just been all here on the platform. So I need to fix that when the high and low, or sorry, when the open and close are equal to each other, you just get a no bar, right? And it should still be a line. Would be entertaining to watch, maybe. I probably do need to lose a little bit of weight, but I'm worried that in my current condition that I wouldn't lose weight very well. I think that, I don't know, I'm just, maybe it's always been like this, but I feel like that my cortisol is too high. So it's just like eating muscle, not the fat. But we'll see. Because I've been working out pretty hard past few weeks. Not this week. Because reasons. Missed my Tuesday workout. It's really interesting to watch them side by side, isn't it? Day traders have a high cortisol by default. Yeah, except for the, like, you know, past week, we've just, you know, we haven't been taking any major trades or anything. That was a curious buy come through there in the treasuries. You getting the start of some upside movement? Officers from the force that felled Henry Nowak have now admitted they felt controlled and pressured to feel certain ways after mandatory DEI sessions that hammered home white privilege and unconscious bias. Oh. So they're saying that the training that police have been given have caused problems and that we need to change those policies. You know what? I feel like that if all that came out of Nowak was that they changed DEI training and all of that, I'd be a little disappointed. But we'll see. All this woke stuff has a major deadline in 2029. So, you know, one of the things that I saw people talking about yesterday, you know, is Donald Trump really just trying to delay on the Iran situation? And one of the arguments against that would be, well, it's really not helping the Republican Party's election chances. The Iran war seems to be a really big negative for Republicans. Otherwise, they would be looking at a pretty good year. But we've had these redistricting cases that have all really strongly favored Republicans. So it kind of seems that whatever losses you might make from, you know, people not liking the Iran war are all made up for by the redistricting. So maybe Donald Trump doesn't care about that as much as people think that they do. You know? And then you've got the census coming up. And yeah, after the census, under current conditions, there's going to be like another swing of like 20 seats or something like that in favor of Republicans. So you're right. It really seems like the DEI thing in particular, it was not popular with the public. It's going down, and then on top of that, pretty much everything is moving the Republicans' direction. Iran will settle this year. Winter will be scary. The U.S. knows it. Explain. What about the winter hurts Iran? Because I'm kind of the position like, what more could they suffer? Like, we've done everything, and they're still kind of like, yep, we think that we have the advantage. You know, it's like this. It's like the effing knight from Monty Python. He's like, no, that's just a flesh wound, right? I just cut your arm off. He's cut all of its arms and legs off, and he's still sitting there taunting. That's Iran, man. At that point, how do you kill it? You know, like it. I don't know what you do. It's a heating/oil season in the winter. So are you saying that Iran relies very heavily on that stuff for warmth? I mean, I know if here in Utah, if the natural gas was shut off during the winter, it would be a big problem. There probably would be people that would freeze to death. They rely on profits they can't get from. Oh, okay, but we've already cut off a lot of money from them, profits that they rely on, and they don't have anywhere to put the oil anymore. And right, like there's already been like 2 or 3 things like that. Why is that going to be the one that really tips the scales? Okay. So the EU is beginning to panic. Now I see that could be a potential change for sure, right? Because Europe is looking at extremely high energy costs for the winter again. And when we had this before, or after the Ukraine war started, it was a big problem for the politicians over there. And this would be way, way worse. So maybe this is the thing that finally pressures European powers into doing something. I think there's more of a theory. Yeah. Tell you what, the last 5 minutes in the S&P 500 have been kind of rough. Look at all those wicks. Any trades today? Nah. You're not going to get very many trades day before a non-farms payroll. But I'm hopeful that we get some action tomorrow that I want to get involved in. So I think this next non-farms, you're probably going to see a lot more impact from, how are people deciding to adjust to the Iran situation and so forth. So we'll see. There's a possibility that we come out with like a negative number. That could really shift the market. Then that would give us some good opportunities. But today, man, the treasuries, this is on par with the worst days we've ever. It basically doesn't get any worse than this. The most you could have maybe made 2 ticks on it coming down and back up, but that's it. It's super, super tight. And they are waiting on non-farms. So you know what else is kind of an interesting thing about the NOAC thing? Is that I don't really see a lot about that situation on Donald Trump forums. I'm seeing stuff about it all over the place, but not the Donald Trump places. Have you traded SOFR? No. Actually, I think last time we tried to pull those up, we didn't we couldn't see them. I don't remember. You want to try again? What is it? It's like SR3 or something? Yeah. Okay. 1 month. SOFR futures. June 2026. Put it on experimentation count. Loads up, but then I don't get any data. So I don't know what I would have to do to get the... I mean, I would think it's trades on the CBOT, doesn't it? Like, should get it. I don't know. Having one of those really, really, really short interest rate, that would be interesting, A Ninja Trader support can help solve that for you? I don't think they can. Because, well, first of all, I was pulling it up in Jigsaw Day Trader. And I think that that's going to be more a rhythmic thing. Oh, you know what we could maybe do is we could try and open it up in rhythmic. Let's see here. Order book. There we go. I was like, I thought that you just clicked on it. Why do I have results for expirations 2022? So here's 1 month sulfur futures SR1Q6. Oh, add. Oh, well, that did it. I would think that it would be June, though. But maybe it's one of those, maybe I'm just getting the wrong one. So we did Q over here. Oh, wait, hey. Go back to June. Maybe I just didn't wait long enough. Well, so immediately what I'm seeing here on Jigsaw is that the Jigsaw settings for it are all wrong. Which Jigsaw doesn't really have an instrument panel, like an instrument manager, so that you can change those things. Maybe it's you can't do June. Maybe that's the reason why it wasn't working, was we just needed to do the next month. That's too hard to tell. Okay, but then here's the next thing is, why do those interest you? Because you're talking about something that, like, barely moves. You're talking about something that's, like, it makes, like, 1 tick a day. I suppose maybe you can make money as a market maker and just put order on both sides. Risk-free rate of return. They have a high tick value. Yeah, but there's problems that come with that. I'm browsing Reddit and it's showing me Cope from Bitcoin traders. Yeah, I need to fix those, what do you call them? Doji bars or whatever. Show where the open and the close was, just draw it as a line. Have you used trading? Yes. Well, so, you know, you can get a demo from them. So I've used a demo. There's definitely something different about the data. So when you're watching, like, if they're trading through a number, like the number of updates that you see as that happens over here is way higher for some reason. So, it's kind of interesting. Does that help you? I don't know, but it is better. But it's pricey. Like using trading technologies costs a ton. I really don't see how anybody could practically use them without running a fund. It really is geared towards people that are basically running CTAs and hedge funds. So that one, you know, I wouldn't say that it comes up a lot, but it comes up periodically. And every time that I've seen somebody come across and ask me that, you know, they end up with something else. Because what they're doing is they're asking search or AI, like, what's the best platform? And then obviously it's trading technologies, but it's outside your pay range. And then they get stuck because everything else that they look at is terrible. Or is terrible in comparison in their minds. Now you're getting a little something happening here. Is the A-mini going to make a new high there? Or awfully close. And at the same time, oil does seem positioned for the downside. I think our test with the trading platform today was good. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge that branch and cut a build. And then, you know, continue on with the other things. But then that way I can continue to use that build in case I mess something up or whatever. That's the build, and we can just continue to show that every day. Also, we don't need to show this next to it. We can just minimize that. How about that? Also, I need to come up with an icon for it. CEOs are losing confidence per Axios. So Substack is just the new live journal / blogger? Yes, and I'm tired of pretending that it's not. It is different because you make money from it, but you know, it's a subscription-based thing. And I think there's a lot of people that really feel like, hey, content on the internet has gotten kind of crappy. Maybe if we have to pay for it, it'll be better. And so far, from what I see from people, kind of suggests that that's true. What is the telltale sign of an iceberg or a meta order? Well, so there's two very, very different things. Okay. So with an iceberg, one thing that I have to warn you about is that there are two types of icebergs. There are exchange side icebergs and there are synthetic icebergs. So on an exchange side iceberg, you submit it and the exchange says, okay, only show 500 contracts at a time. And what that means is that you'll see, like right now, 5137 on the offer, and like 500 will hit it. Oh, that's a good grief, Ninja Trader. That like scared the crap out of me. New version. Don't show me that. You will get like 500 contracts hit, and the amount on offer will not change at all. Because what's happening is the exchange is updating things and immediately putting the next 500 on there before you see the data change at all, right? So that's a way that you can definitively see that there is an iceberg going on, okay? But maybe somebody doesn't want to be detected so easily. They can do a synthetic iceberg, which is on their side. They've got something that is just keeping track of it and saying every time that I get filled, I add some more on. So in that case, you might see it go down and then back up and change really quickly, right? But generally speaking, in the treasuries, you know, if it takes more than 3,000 contracts to trade into a price, there's iceberging going on there, you know. So I kind of think it's more about like there was an unusually large amount that they had to trade through in order to tick up or down. Kind of what it comes down to. You're gonna see, I'm gonna bet you that there's gonna be some big icebergs here at the top if the treasuries are able to jump out of this. Oh, actually, never mind. Yeah, 24 is the extended session plus 1 sigma, so I don't have a whole lot of confidence that that's going to continue. Probably, you know, I could take a short on it. I could take a short. I don't know if it's really worth it, though, because you're just going to get 23.5. It's like, I could get filled at 24.5 on the hopes there's an iceberg there, and then get out at 23.5. That's probably going to be a really slow trade. You're going to be stuck in it for a while. But to make 2 ticks, I don't really feel like it's worth it. But that's the kind of play that you'd want to make on a day like today. Also, you notice there's lots of like little changes on the market depth, but that there's not any orders coming through. Uber cuts 23% of HR division explicitly states the layoffs are not related to AI adoption. The ES DOM seems too fast to even try to detect icebergs. Yeah. Well, and then on top of that, if there's an iceberg in ES, why? Why is there an iceberg? Why are they putting it there? I think some people have this naive idea that you'll see the iceberg and then it's going to flip around and turn around, and that's not the case. They're just, those are usually people hedging, and what are they hedging on? I don't know. I don't know what causes those flows. So at any time that something's happening, they just blow through those. I have a theory that during COVID, mutual funds and banks secretly started to cooperate, and that's why order flow in ES looks broken after. You know what though? I've always felt that the order flow in ES is broken. It was not. It changed. It definitely changed mostly because we moved up so much that you were just in a higher, amount of movement per tick is basically what happened, and less liquidity per tick because the value of the S&P 500 was so much higher, right? Because we're at like 7,000, and back then it was like not even 3,000, I think, right? So that kind of changes things. So that's kind of what changed. But before that, the flows were just as weird. Should I say weird? I don't know if weird is the right word, but they're very different from what you see in the treasuries or other assets where that, like, the order flow really matters. Like, I think I have a hard time seeing how you're gonna make money like taking short day trades without watching the depth of market. But there's just so many flows in the S&P 500. I don't know how you trade that effectively in the first place, right? Every story that I've ever heard about people developing a really strong edge in ES was basically they were doing arbitrage between ES and the actual index, you know? Like there was this group of people that they had all of these elaborate signals and stuff to show each other where the index actually was because the people on the floor couldn't see it. And they made a killing from that. Otherwise, this kind of like advantage that you can gain as a retail trader, I don't see it. All I ever see is people saying that they have some technical setup that's been working and they've been a profitable trader for like 2 years, and then you look into it and nope, there's absolutely no empirical evidence behind the signal that they're using, and you look at their trading and they have really, really big stops and close targets and do all sorts of other degenerate things that basically result in them winning most days, and then once every 2 years they blow the account. Is there a way for retailers to know what the narrative is on the street? Like, what are clients calling in for? So real time, probably not. But after the fact, like at the end of the day, there's a lot of news outlets that they talk to the desks and they get a sense of like what was coming through that day and stuff. Zero Hedge does a really good job telling you that kind of stuff. By the way, remember I was saying, well, I think that the trade would be you go from, you sell it at 24.5 because we're at a key volatility level, but that you would maybe have to take 23.5. Well, it's gone further than that, but I don't think that I would have gotten filled at 24.5. There was not enough buying flow after I said that to have gotten filled. So you would have had to have hit into 24. He hit into 24, it would have worked though. I guess, you know, the thing was is that we kind of had a hole at 23.5, so that's why I was pointing that as a spot that's like, I don't know if they'll actually move meaningfully below that very quickly or not. But they did, so hey.
Block sell.
Oh, now that's interesting. Based on volatility, you've got a lot of room on the downside. In fact, I don't have it updated, but let's change that. The numbers that it's giving me do not match up. That's correct. Oh, 16.5 is correct. Oh, there it is. Okay. I think that the next kind of level below us would be 18.5, but that seems a little bit far. I am seeing oil rearing its head. I mean, they're still down. But, like, that's the start of a trend, you know. You keep an eye on that. Seth thinking of taking a trade. I did. I mean, I almost clicked. I was like, I really do think that it's going to turn around here. I just don't think that there's very good risk reward because non-farms tomorrow. So I shouldn't take a trade. Because otherwise I'd have to explain to you guys why I'm taking a trade, but I think it's a bad idea, right? I just I'm really worried about like teaching you guys something that would hurt you in the long run. You know what I mean? But it was a good signal. That was probably one of the best ones that we've gotten in a while. I wouldn't even say signal, I'd say opportunities. You know, because really the thing was, it was at a key options level, a level where the options were basically pricing that it wouldn't get outside of that. So that's why it becomes an opportunity. And then you're watching the order flow. It's like the market orders just completely dried up, right? So yeah, it's probably going to turn back around. That was the setup. But I'm on alert now because it did come down pretty quickly. I'm kind of wondering if maybe the oil market is catching on to some headline that we're about to get. Okay. Oh, what was it? A block sell? Yeah, there was a sell. Oh, so they're just doing it again. Right? They're just like taking out the whole bid all at once. It was at 22 though, and it was 3,000 contracts. And at 22 half before that, there was 5,000 contracts that got taken out. So somebody really was just willing to just completely, and I think that that's unusual also because of where we're at, right? Like, okay, so we were up at the gamma levels and things kind of turned around. So then we returned back to the center of where we've been basically all session. But then we get there and you see acceleration. You see all of a sudden somebody is taking out like everything that's there. So that's like you're getting some signs of a big trade, of a big meta order that's coming through. And why would a big meta order that's just going to be trading the range like I wanted to be coming out there? That doesn't make very much sense at all. So it would make much more sense that it's like some sort of a headline. I suppose it could be that they think, okay, once we're below the open, then I want to sell. A possibility. But I've never noticed that kind of a behavior so clearly just over across of the open. You know, usually when you cross the open, there's just, it becomes a big volume node. It's not. And I am seeing oil rise at the same time. It's a small amount, like obviously oil is still down big. One of the changes I want to make on my platform, I got this cursor and it shows me on all of the other charts so that I can kind of compare. Okay, here we've been going up. You can see as oil has started going up, the treasuries have started going down. But it's kind of hard for a viewer to see where am I actually pointing at. And I wish that that was a different color from the other ones. But yeah, oil's going up there. And you're seeing the treasuries sell off in response. Now, I would think that if there was a real headline that oil would have moved way more than that. Still, kind of curious. Either way, I said take a short there. Got way more off of that short than I expected. Way more off that. But it was a good pick. I should have taken it, I guess. Have you guys seen this online drama about the next God of War game? I've never played those games, so I don't know how I feel about it. The clips that I've seen, though, the girl looks hot, so I don't necessarily... I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain. Well, maybe if I played the games and was involved in the story, I would be upset. What the heck? What is this? A high school in China hooks its students to IV peptide drips while they prepare for the Gaokao, China's brutal national college entrance exam that occurs every June. So this school is working so hard to improve the performance of their students that they're connecting them to IVs with peptides to improve their performance? What's this peptide that they're on? That's what I want to know. Is it... Those who trade have enough dopamine to consider playing games, or maybe you mean don't have enough dopamine to consider playing games. It's like you're already playing a game. Especially when you're taking active positions and it's a rough market. It is stressful, man. All the people here in the comments are just talking about being attached to an IV, but the title said peptides. So what peptide would they be on? Those IV services are dangerous because they don't have the medical supplies for intervention if something happens. For example, a woman in Texas went to one of those medical spas for an IV treatment. She ended up dying because the total parenteral nutrition, aka the IV cocktail that contains potassium, was pushed too fast and her heart stopped. Turns out the med spa didn't have the legally required medical staff to oversee these treatments, not just during the shift, they don't even have them on the payroll. Oh wow. So this cocktail has things like potassium in them, and then you get too much potassium and that would cause your heart to stop. That's scary. But they're saying that there was a peptide in it. I want to know about the peptide. What's this, the make you smart peptide? I've seen the make you skinny peptide. What's the make you smart peptide? Risk of infection, blah 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 blah. I think that my conclusion is that the image is lying in that they're not actually being given peptides. So the make you smart peptide remains elusive. You know what's coming though? Did you hear that suppress your muscles only grow to a certain size peptide is coming? Like the hormone or the protein that stops your muscles from growing beyond a certain size. They can just suppress that so that the muscle just keeps growing on its own without steroids or anything like that. Sounds, I mean, I think that the number one, I would want to know if you get on that and then you build the muscle and then you get off of it, does it just go back to what it was? So I don't know if I would want to do it because it would be only, then you'd have to maintain the muscle, you'd have to stay on the peptide, right? And like, what would the side effects be? But like if the side effects were just like, you might puke a little bit and stuff, I'm down. I think that I could be a lot stronger than I am if I weren't on like my ADHD medications. Because I built up a lot of strength in the period before I started taking them again. That and sleep. I probably would have to sleep a lot more. I did okay last night though. You know what I did? Because the kids just would not effing go to sleep. And then even after they'd go to sleep, sometimes I was finding it hard for me to go to sleep because I'm so agitated from he won't go to sleep. So I changed the thermostat. Said, okay, can be like 71 degrees during the day, which to me is kind of hot. Like I think it should be 69 pretty much all the time. But they all think that's cold. They all think it's 70. Oh, it's so cold in here. Nah, probably you're just hungry. But so I tried to make it a little bit more extreme of a temperature difference. Like it's 71, 72 most of the day, and then when it's bedtime, it's 67, right? And it worked like a charm. Granted, I think that they also gave the younger one what do you call it? Melatonin. I think they give him melatonin. But I certainly slept well. And then for my birthday, I got linen sheets, so I kind of like the linen sheets too. So maybe if I just stick with that, we'll do better on the sleep. And I can get to sleep at 9:30 more often. That would make a big difference for me. Any IV with potassium should be given with an ECG. Yeah, I could see, I bet you that those students were just attached to a saline. I could see doing that and just being on a saline solution would help your studying, help you be able to study for longer. But they were finding that the students were studying so hard, they would forget to drink and stuff. Totally makes sense. You know what else is that I don't still have it, do I? Oh no, I do have it. I bet you there's not anything in it, but it's like canned oxygen. It's like canned oxygen, so you can just, give yourself, instead of having to put on, a mask to get the oxygen, I would still a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how even one whiff of higher concentration of oxygen makes you feel. I remember, went to, where was it that we went? Oh, Six Flags, obviously. Six Flags. And every roller coaster was so intense that it was you needed to sit with the oxygen mask for a little bit afterwards, get something to eat, yada, 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 and then you were just spent at the end of it again, right? But you know what I think it was? I think it was the sugar. I think that if I had just eaten whole wheat bagels all day, it would have been fine. How do you use order flow? Do you take your trades based solely on order flow? Okay, so I think that order flow is an essential part of developing a solid strategy. The issue is, if you're looking at stuff, if you have something, so as an example, I give you a really good example of what we did today. So you see this chart right here in the upper corner? So we came up to a key gamma level. This cyan line is basically, it's saying that the options are pricing that we won't get above that line today. The at the money options are basically saying you're not going to get past that today. All right. And we came up to that line, right? Well, without order flow. So that is a real edge. That is a real edge that I think you can take advantage of on as a retail trader, right? Okay. Situational though, right? Situational. You kind of have to say, well, but is this a trend day? Is there a reason for us to outperform volatility today? In this case, it's not. Tomorrow we got a non-farm, so we're going to stay within the volatility. It's a good place to take that thing. But what does the order flow actually do in those places? What does the market actually do in those places? And if you don't have order flow, you're not really seeing the whole picture, right? If you watch the order flow all the time, then you're going to learn those things, right? Then you can say, okay, yeah, we're up at that level and the market orders have just completely dried up. Like nothing's happening here. Yeah, it's probably going to reverse. And that's exactly what happened, right? So order flow is an essential part of an effective day trading strategy. But I'd be very, very cautious about assuming that you can develop an edge based on the order flow alone. I don't really have a whole lot of solid evidence for that, to be honest with you. I think that with machine learning and so forth, I think that there are some edges that I could build there, and that's kind of part of why we're building our own platform. So I'm building a more powerful shovel to get through tougher rock, essentially, right? But, you know, a lot of the things that people are taught about order flow, they're like certain setups and things that they take based on the footprint chart and certain setups that you see, patterns that you'll see in the DOM. And if you're just taking blind trades based purely on that, you're probably not going to make money. You'll have good periods and bad periods, but it's not the whole thing. You have to be able, and so I have a video about this actually, but there are 5 things. Let's see if I can remember what the 5 things are. There are 5 things that we know you should incorporate into your trading strategy. And if you're only incorporating one of them, you're probably not going to be very successful. You need at least these 5 things to even stand a chance. And they are order flow, volatility, news, risk management, other flows. Other flows would be like understanding, end of month rebalancing, and those sorts of things. I think those were the 5 that I listed. You could say the price action, but I don't know if there's actually any edge intraday to the price action at all. So saw a video the other day from Delta Trend, and he was testing fair value gaps, which I have tested also. And he does a little bit more like, okay, let's just look at that individual spot and see if there's some sort of statistical aberration about that individual spot. So he compared the fair value gap to like a large bar, which I think is maybe a flawed comparison, because like a fair value gap can be small, perhaps. So, but you was comparing, it was a big bar versus a big bar that had a fair value gap. I would think that those would be relatively rare, but or the ones where there was a big bar but it wasn't a fair value gap, those would probably be pretty rare. So that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know about that stuff. But he was saying, oh, yeah, so maybe there is like a slight tendency for it to come back to that. That's what his conclusion was. But then he was going to like show you the actual strategy. Well, the way that I've tested it is just the actual strategy, like a bazillion different ways. Doesn't work, right? And everything that I've seen is that prices are martingales. So is your edge order flow plus options? You know, it's volatility, order flow, predictors of order flow, risk management, breaking news. The combination. You gotta have all the spots, the parts. Let's see, this is why when you look at what retail traders do, because retail traders perform significantly worse than what randomness suggests they should. Like if it's just random, you're taking trades, their results should be random, but retail traders almost universally lose. Why is that? It's because you're not even trading at break even. You're not even getting into that spot where like your results can be random because you don't have those 5 things. If you don't have those 5 things, you're not even competitive. And most retail traders want to think that I'm going to build my edge on just this one really narrow thing, which I don't know, is part of that is maybe we have a tendency to think of it like that, maybe part of it is like historically they've been told, oh, well, it was just this pattern. And so they think that it's just supposed to be one thing, but it's not. It's way more complicated than that. The trick is being able to look at all of those things and do the detailed analysis beforehand so that when you're live in your trading, you can make the decisions quickly, right? How do you distill all of that complexity into something simple that you can trade in the moment? That's the real skill. Yeah, with the 5 infinity. Oh, that's the way that I should have done it. Maybe I should redo that video. Do you think using an order flow indicator like big trades is useful? You know what? I think that an indicator like that is interesting. I think it's really, really interesting. Again, like, can you come in here and do something that's like, okay, if I look at cumulative delta overall, and, you know, when it's going up, I want to buy, and when it's going down, I want to sell. You can do okay with that. Some of the best strategies that I've backtested were basically if I detect a trend in cumulative delta and that trend is really consistent and going along with that, right? So that's the best trades. That's why I teach, like, the big thing is you want to look for a large meta order and just kind of write that, right? But what if you looked at cumulative delta of everything versus cumulative delta of just the large orders, or maybe cumulative delta of just the large orders and cumulative delta of just the small orders? And then maybe like when they're diverging from each other, you would maybe have a trade or something like that. That's like an interesting theory to test. But to do it, you need you need like 5 years of data and all of these other things, and then you might do it and find that there's no edge, but maybe there is an edge, but it's just like there's regimes. And so you can put all of these other features in there to help you detect the regimes and then use machine learning to sort it out. Right? But I can't do that in NinjaTrader. So it's interesting. There might be an edge there, but I can't prove that. Right? See here, my edge, delta, order flow. I mean, I feel like the delta and order flow and MBO and volume market profiles are all the same thing. Although I take that back also because I get why you're listing like MBO because most people don't have that. And we do have a study that kind of suggests that the MBO data does help the algorithms in some way. We're not sure why, but I don't know if that would translate to helping a retail trader, but still, it's worth a try. I can't prove that volume and market profiles do anything. One thing that I study that we probably should do, again, you know, I have all sorts of ideas and things to test. So one of the things that's funny is I spent a lot of time testing like other people's ideas that I know aren't really going to work. And then there were some points where there's ideas that I have, and then I forget about them. When I have the time to test them, I forget about them. Something that I would like to do is, okay, so we've tested volume profile. Does it provide an edge? And as far as I can tell, on a risk-adjusted basis, no. But what if you did a volume profile and you excluded the first 30 and last 30 minutes of the trading session? Does that give you something different? Because one of the things that I kind of feel is that the opening and closing auctions distorts the volume profile so much that it makes it useless. But if you were only looking at where was a place where something interesting happened through the trade of the day, and does that give you a different answer? And what if you try trading on that? Probably still no edge, but it's still worth trying. Still worth trying. But when you get into these things that's like, I'm going to use cumulative delta and a bunch of other features that data series essentially that I've created based on order flow, and some information about what kind of a market we're in, like what the volatility for the day is expected to be, You're accounting for news events are going to be there. This is one of the things that I think a lot of people say, like, you shouldn't account. But I think that if you put that in there, it really changes things. You say, well, news gets, maybe I'm looking for some fundamental property of the market, right? Well, if I'm looking for that, then anytime that there is a planned news and you're still keeping positions through that, that's just distorting your results. So if you just tell it to always exclude, if you're in a position, get out, and then don't get back in until a minute afterwards and whatnot, then you're filtering out some noise, and then you can actually see the real behavior underneath. And you get, from my own testing, because we have an indicator that does that, my own testing suggests that you get way more interesting statistical outlays from it. So you combine all of those things into a sophisticated algorithm with machine learning. I think that there probably are some good edges hiding in there. We've just got to build it. It's hard to build. I almost wonder if the retail trading platforms do not include those things on purpose. It kind of help with seeing the clear picture, not as an individual signal. I skip the second part of the day of volume profile. You can do anything you want with volume. Yeah, I could change a volume profile in NinjaTrader to do that, to exclude the first and last 30 minutes or something like that. And we're definitely going to be building charts like that in the new platform. One of the things that I really have to think about with the platform is, okay, here's what people need, but I find all too often that retail traders don't really know what they need, and when they're presented with it, they're not interested in it. So you got to provide them with what they want too, which means that you do have to have the indicators that they kind of traditionally have, and you've got to make them more amazing than the platforms that they already have them on. Yeah, we will do that too. That means that I will have a volume profile. It's just my volume profile will have an additional setting to exclude the start and end. Right? It's going to be fun. And hopefully we'll be doing those sorts of things in the next few weeks. Although that does get into, because I'm not sure if doing things that would require custom drawing, like a volume profile, I'm not sure how well that will work with Python. So I might have to make those Rust native indicators. Well, I had a good session today. There's a couple of new people came in, and although on your race, sorry, I don't know how you say your name. I remember you from before. It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure you've asked questions before, yeah. So some good questions, some good discussion. New Squawk is saying something. Sounds like the IMF is making some economic forecasts based on the Iran war and so forth. So it was just going through that. Well, meanwhile, in equities land, it's been pretty good. Now, they're getting to the spot where I would kind of think that they might have some trouble. But it's changed because the regular session is a little bit higher. So I think that you could maybe touch 75, 80. But from there, you're probably gonna get the gamma and everything fighting against you. Well, not the gamma. I haven't even looked at the gamma. The options working against you. What is the gamma exposure? Probably in positive gamma. Yeah. 75, 80. Yeah. But interestingly enough, below 60 and 70, you start getting negative gamma. Next time Seth will be in a Crusade 9. That'd be funny. Dude, I've seen some people on TikTok where like their whole TikTok is a certain outfit or whatever. And it's just that one outfit that they have. And I've seen some crazy stuff, especially with people doing stuff with armor. So I'm jealous of them, but I would never actually spend time or money on that. So, all right. Anyways, guys, it's time for me to get going. So I will see you tomorrow, Friday, non-farms. Don't miss it. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.